in a literal sense. We are
unlimited power. Welcome to part 2 of Zero Breaks His Brain while learning about the Marvel Universe. This is very crazy, and if you want to see my reaction to part 1, I'll probably have a link to the entire playlist down in the description below. And as per usual, if this is the first time you're seeing this and you do want to watch this later half of the video for some reason, make sure to go support the OG video. Link to that is at the very top of the description, as always.
And now with the Queen of Nevers addressed, Act -2 is over and we can get to the third and final act of this Cosmology video, the structure of the...
Act -2, is this what? Kingdom Hearts? Kingdom Hearts 2.5, 2.9. God, they bamboozled us real hard.
Multiverse, a map of it, if you will. Though map in the traditional sense is definitely wrong because this is going to be strange and weird and twisty, exactly as it should be. Let's get started.
Yes.
We're going to begin our adventure at human scale, and where better to start a journey through the Marvel Multiverse than in New York City, specifically 177A Bleecker Street, the address of the Sanctum Sanctorum. We're going to walk right in, say hi to Strange, Clea, Wong, and Bats the Ghost Dog, then take a peek inside the Orb of Agamotto and see some very weird places. But we're not going to start by going up, we're going to start by going down. If you shrink yourself down enough from human scale, you will end up in the realm known as the Microverse or the Quantum Realm. Either name is equally correct, the MCU just had to change it for legal reasons. I'm gonna say Microverse because it's what's used more often in the comics, but both are right. The exact canon status of the Microverse is a little bit shaky because it's been retconned a few times, leading to the most simple fact about it being weirdly up for debate. Is the Microverse actually small or not? Originally, the Microverse was just...
But it's kind of in the name, so... Are we gonna change it now that it's not small anymore, technically? I don't think I watched the second Ant-Man movie. Have we ever explored it in the MCU?
Briefly in the second Ant-Man movie. Apparently in Quantumania, I think they do stuff in it. I haven't seen that one yet, and I've only heard atrocious things about that movie, so... I don't know. I also know somehow Kang the Conqueror shows up, and I don't know how they do that either.
I don't know who that is. But yeah, cool. For those of you who know, let us know.
We're binging through all the Marvel movies, so I'll get to it eventually. I'm terrified.
What Marvel movie are you guys currently on?
We just finished Spider-Man No Way Home.
A layer of reality where everything was so small that humans couldn't interact with it. But if you got yourself small enough, abracadabra, now you were on the same scale as everything else there and you could interact with it. And then this was changed. I'm not really sure why that was changed, but it was. Current Microverse canon says that the Microverse is not tiny in a literal sense, it's just a parallel dimension that you access by getting really small, and once you do that enough, your body creates this weird little dimensional nexus, and the energy from that, just all the compression of matter, sends you over into the Microverse. I'm pretty sure that that is the current state of how you access the Microverse. Not 100% sure, I'll be very honest, but either way, it is close enough, you get small and you end up there. Functionally, visiting the Microverse is just kind of like going to a different galaxy. It's not an alternate universe where there are variants of people you know, it is a different dimension with its own planets and people and cultures.
The way this is structured sort of reminds me of all the different universes, or I guess parallel dimensions in D&D lore, because they do a similar thing here with like all the little circles and just all the different realms you could go to and all the different adventures you could have, and some places are more welcoming than others, let's say. Although I suppose looking at it closer, this is just a DNA strand, no?
Yeah, it's similar.
There seems to be a different Microverse for each individual universe. It is not one Microverse that the entire multiverse has to share, but I say seems to be because, as you can probably guess from how I've been describing it, the canon of the Microverse is a little bit weird. Yeah. We aren't going to spend too much time here, though, because we have to keep shrinking downwards. Get even smaller than Microversal scale, and you're going to end up in a far weirder, but also, I guess, far less interesting area known as Underspace.
Microverse?
Underspace is basically just a void. It is where you end up when you get so small that the conventions of space don't really apply to you. There's nothing here, that's why I say it's not interesting. But you can build stuff here, which is the only reason that we've actually seen it in a comic. Hank Pym used Pym particles to create the Infinite Avengers Mansion in the Underspace once, which is basically like Avengers Mansion combined with a TARDIS. That's the easiest way I can describe it. Underspace is the smallest that you can get. What happens if you try to shrink down more here? I have absolutely no idea, and physics don't apply, so there's probably not a consistent answer. As for the question of whether there are multiple underspaces or just one collective one for the entire multiverse, I have absolutely no idea. I am inclined to say that there is an individual underspace per universe for reasons that I will get to later, but there's not a solid answer to that. Honestly, the underspace is not important, and it's a miracle that I remembered to include it in this video at all.
Yeah, I don't see this being a concept that is really explored a whole lot. Like, it's neat in concept, but in practicality, I don't think anybody would really care about it too much. Once again, it's one of those things where the human mind starts to struggle to grasp what's going on. And so if you're trying to tell a story for the general audience, this ain't it. This isn't really the place to tell that story.
A space with nothing is far less weird than some of the things we'll get to later.
Oh, God. It's a space with everything, the complete opposite. Aha!
So we have zoomed in on reality 2 layers deep and hit the end of our journey in that direction. Now let's go back to human scale and start zooming outwards. The next part of this is really easy. You zoom out from the orb of Agamotto, and you're in the Sanctum, which is in New York, which is on Earth, which is in the solar system, which is in the Milky Way, which is in the universe. I don't really have to explain how that works. It's more or less the same as the real world, and it doesn't start getting funky until you get bigger from there. Though before we get to the actual multiverse, we need to address different dimensions. Now, in a different video on this channel, I described dimensions versus universes in a slightly different way than I'm going to here. So if you've seen my Captain Britain video, what I said there is not technically wrong, but take this as the more in-depth explanation since this is what the main purpose of the video is about. Dimension can and does mean many, many things, but you can roughly categorize them into terms that I made up, which are parallel dimensions and multiversal dimensions. Let's address parallel dimensions first. The easiest example of a parallel dimension is simply hell. I mean, where is hell in a physical sense? It's not somewhere that you can fly to, no matter how good your spaceship is. You're gonna have to cross some sort of metaphysical barrier to get there. This same sort of logic also applies to regions like the astral plane or the dark dimension from Doctor Strange to a certain extent, areas that are specific to each universe, but are definitely not on the same level of existence as the physical realm. Are we going to be going through every parallel dimension that exists within the Marvel Universe? No,
I'm assuming
absolutely
Limbo would
not,
count
because there are about
here
a billion
in this category
of them.
too.
Even using hell as an example is a cop-out because there are a lot of different areas that could be considered hell. Remember how at the end of Act 2 I said that it was ultimately very easy for a writer to just make up a cosmic entity, use them for an arc or two, and then abandon them? Yeah. Same thing applies to parallel dimensions.
I mean, a whole playground where I could do whatever I want, you know? I can see the appeal to creating something like that. And then, you know, other people don't really like the idea. They want to do their own, and it just gets tossed into the bundle. Once again.
I mean, especially when you've got characters like Strange who, like, that's kind of their gimmick, is going to these different parallel dimensions and dealing with this kind of shit.
Ooh, yeah. When you introduce a character like that, it opens up the door to infinite possibilities. In all these different timelines, there's only one way that we win.
Absolutely are parallel dimensions, which are very important. Asgard is often represented as a parallel dimension, though the lines there are a little bit fuzzy. But for every Asgard, you have a lot that are named things like Heislip, or the Purple Dimension, or Acid Rain World.
We got creative with these names, didn't we?
Or nonsense like that never matter. So suffice it to say, for our sort of multiversal mapping purposes, every individual universe has a varying number of different layers of existence within it, which we will refer to as parallel dimensions. Now let's zoom out even further and get to multiverse stuff. At this point, I should remind everybody that each individual universe within the Marvel Multiverse has a number. The main universe in which almost everything goes on is referred to as Earth 616. And as we zoom out of Earth 616, before we get to other universes...
But why 616? Why that number specifically? Why not like an easy to remember number like 1?
I would bet that there's a reason behind it, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
Versus we're going to reach a middle state called the superflow. The superflow is the connecting quote-unquote space between multiverses. Obviously, that does not work in a literal physical spatial sense. This is all very weird esoteric stuff, and there's not a lot of natural matter there.
How iconic America Chavez's star is.
Oh, wasn't she also in Multiverse of Madness? That's one thing that I remember. I'm pretty sure she was in that movie. I don't recall her powers, but I guess it has something to do with multiversal travel then, if we're talking about it here.
But she just punches star-shaped holes and can go anywhere.
Try putting that on your resume.
I mean, there's more to it than that, but that's her basic power.
It's on the same level of trying to explain like what you do as a YouTuber, what your job is. I play video games and make money.
Of energy, especially of the psionic variety. The canon of this is a little bit shaky, but it has been stated before that the superflow is where dreams come from, and also that it is an origin for telepathy. I guess when telepaths are reaching out to other minds, they are doing so through the superflow somehow. If you manage to directly enter the superflow somehow, you will find the occasional structure there. There is matter there. The keyword to what I said a minute ago was that there is not a lot of natural matter. Certain extremely advanced groups, especially the alien race known as the Builders, have built what are basically space stations within the superflow nearby specific universes. This is also the area that the first Firmament and his minions were chilling as they were waiting to destroy all of reality. The superflow is very cool as a concept, but we're not going to spend a lot of time here on our journey either, mostly because there's not much here to talk about. So we zoom out just a little bit further, and we finally reach the multiverse as it is typically understood. The first thing that you're going to see here is alternate universes. And honestly, at this point, if you've gotten an hour and 20 minutes almost into this video, I really hope I don't have to explain the general idea of what an alternate universe is to you. The important thing to note when we're talking about the multiverse of Marvel
video if you've never heard of a multiverse.
Whoa. How much media would you have had to dodge over the years in order to not know anything about this sort of concept? It's like,
I believe there's people out there.
It's like watching a sci-fi show for the first time and knowing nothing about the stupid cat that everybody has to talk about. Like, who is Schrodinger and why does everybody care about his cat so much? I sort of envy those people though, because whenever you see somebody who's like genuinely new to anything media related, like making a reaction video, their reactions are just so like genuine and they think everything is so freaking awesome. Like, what have I been missing out on, you know? I wish I could say that, but no, I'm on the spectrum of I've seen everything. Well, I can't say that actually. There's so much shit that I haven't seen, but I've seen a lot. And I'm constantly looking for new experiences.
You and I both have the problem of being a little too genre savvy in many cases.
Yeah.
Because like even if we watch something new, it's like, okay, well, I see where this is going.
Exactly. Yeah.
We've gone down this path before.
There's always a pattern to storytelling, and if you can notice the telltale signs that it's heading in a particular direction, then you already know what's going to happen, and so it becomes a little bit less exciting. Or like, this is a trope that you've seen done before. This is sort of like a show that they made for new people to the genre. And so you just know that it's not really for you. Which is why probably both of us would be like super interested in all this weird cosmic lore stuff. Because this is for like the niche community of people who want something weird and out there that they've never seen before. I guess this is just why this video is kind of the perfect introduction for both of us, actually.
Comics is that not all of these alternate universes are direct branches of a singular timeline. That's the way the MCU has tried to characterize it, and it kind of makes sense for what they're doing, but the comics have never stuck too strictly to that. Some of them are timeline branches, but a lot of them just exist without a solid explanation as to why they exist. And honestly, I prefer this. Counterintuitive to the whole point of this video, I do think that the multiverse is an idea that should not be over-explained. It's better.
I don't know. That said Guardians of the Galaxy, right? I didn't recognize anybody in that picture.
I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy were completely different pre-MCU. They were kind of one of those that were never successful. No one really knew them or liked them or cared about them. So they pretty much got a hard reboot post-MCU.
Gotcha. And here's Peter Porker. This one I do know from the Spider-Verse movies.
Yes.
When it's just comic book nonsense, there's a multiverse, and not every universe has to have an in-depth history. Now, we're not nearly done
It can just be a fun
There's
story.
a lot more quote-unquote higher levels that we need to hit here, but we can't leave the multiverse just yet because I do have to explain the concept of multiversal dimensions that I mentioned earlier. Some realities within the multiverse do not have variants of themselves. They are one existence, and there's nothing else out there that's exactly like they are. This is what I call a multiversal dimension, though I should be very clear, that is my term for it. I don't believe there's an official name for this. A good example of this would be Mojo World, home of the X-Men villain Mojo, which exists in a singular dimension known as the Mojoverse. As you can tell, there's a theme with their naming. There is only one
What the heck? You just gotta love these villains who name everything after themselves. Like freaking Dr. Eggman, everything has to be egg related. You just gotta rub it into your face that it's made by him. And he also rubs his face into your face too. God, the Mojo verse though, that is freaking hilarious.
Mojo and only one Mojo World. If the X-Men are going there, they are leaving their universe and going to this different one. And if the X-Men of a different reality were to go to the Mojoverse, they would end up in the same one, not their own version of it. Some of these dimensions exist in a unique space within the structure of the multiverse, leading to them having the title Nexus of All Realities. One of the easiest examples of this is the dimension known as Otherworld. Just with the way that Otherworld is positioned in relation to everywhere else, the cosmic energies of the multiverse, probably through the superflow, happen to concentrate in this area, allowing Otherworld to be a focal point by which one person can travel to any other area.
This is a neat concept that I've also seen D&D do. I forget exactly what it was called, but there's like this particular city where all the dimensions converge, and so you have this like vast array of characters that you can play within that particular setting, because you could be from literally anywhere, and you could end up here for a very good reason, and potentially travel to anywhere else within the D&D lore to have whatever cool adventure there. It's just a nice place to make sure that you have this central point for really cool stories, or at least the potential for them.
Nexi don't have to be entire dimensions either. There can be Nexi within
Cut your
individual
nails.
realities. The Everglades is one in the main Marvel universe. They can also be housed within items like the Macron crystal, which pretty much works like a nexus, and also they can be individual beings. The best example of this is the Scarlet Witch, who draws a lot of her power from the fact that she is a Nexus being. In fact, the Queen of Nevers uses Nexus beings as her agents. They are the ones who enact possibility throughout the multiverse. With all of this established, let's zoom out a little bit more, not enough to take us into the next zone, but enough that we can kind of recap what we've seen so far. Looking down, we see a vast network of alternate universes and singular multiversal dimensions, held together by a structure known as the superflow, consisting of cosmic energy which converges at various types of nexus points. This is the multiverse. This is also eternity. What we are looking at right now is what the cosmic entity known as eternity embodies. In fact, actually, hang on, let me zoom out like a couple clicks more here and oh, hello, it is eternity. This is eternity in a literal sense. By zooming out just a tiny little bit, we have entered another layer known as the overspace. As you might be able to guess, this is the opposite of the underspace, and it is somewhere that you can access by getting really, really big. This is not a place that gets accessed very often, but essentially, if you get big enough, then you are the size of the universe. And in this weird pseudo-religious cosmological sense, the universe is a guy, so if you're the same size as the guy, then you can talk to the guy. Once we have reached this level, we have officially exited the multiverse. Look, there he is right over there. And when we hit this level, it gets a little bit hard to tell exactly where things are in relation to each other because we're outside of space, and so terms like in relation don't have any meaning. This is where things get really cool, though. Once we've exited the multiverse, all of the rules of logic that we've been using can be thrown out, and things can be wild with no restrictions.
It's gonna get frigging abstract here. Like, you can't describe where you are because the concept of space doesn't apply to you anymore. So, does time even apply? Does any physics apply? How do you exist within that space? Like, do you even exist in the first place in that space? Or are you simply experiencing it? Okay, I'm gonna stop.
However, before we get to these really wild realms, I do have to address an elephant in the room, the MCU. I have referenced it briefly a few times, and now I'm actually going to talk about it.
Oh boy.
As of now, when I am recording this video...
Oh god. This section was originally part of a longer segment talking about crossovers, omniverse stuff. I recorded the whole thing, but ended up cutting it because not only was it kind of tangential. How do you say that word?
I'm going with tangential.
You're the American here.
Hey, I can't talk.
I could tell it was going to make people mad. Yeah. It's going to make anybody mad. Regardless of what you're talking about, regardless of the series, if you have an opinion about something, somebody's going to be mad. So it is what it is. For our purposes today, crossovers aren't canon, DC, Fortnite, whatever. Thank goodness. In the current state of canon, none of that stuff has any lore connection to the Marvel Multiverse. Secret Wars pretty solidly confirms this. A whole Axel Asher thing has been retconned. No idea who that is. Sometimes they cross over anyway. The explanation for this is they are comic books and don't have to follow their own logic if they have a cool enough idea. Who could have guessed? The rule of cool comes first, and even if it breaks some logic within the universe that has been set up, do you really care? It's a comic book.
Exactly.
If you want lore as to how Marvel and DC, etc. connect, the lore is that they connect because it's cool and it doesn't go deeper currently. This could change with the new Marvel DC crossovers later this year, but they're not out yet, so I can't speak for them. We'll just have to wait and see. Are they out yet?
I don't think so. I think they put out some images teasing for it, but I don't think they're out yet.
I wonder if they're doing this because both companies are struggling, so they see the signs and they're like, let's help each other instead of trying to compete.
I just am happy to take them while they get.
I'll just take whatever cool stuff that we get, you know?
Yeah.
If I can see Batman and Marvel Rivals, I'm happy.
That might be a stretch. But you never know. I don't see an impossible future where the two companies end up merging at one point. Who could say? You never know what the future holds.
And I'm sure there's going to be some people with some pretty strong opinions about that kind of thing. So,
I've got some strong opinions on that kind of thing. But with Disney buying literally everything, you say that they couldn't buy it from, I don't know who owns it, Universal, someone? I don't know.
Oh, Disney.
It's not an impossibility.
Why? Why did they destroyed Star Wars? Please, not anything else. Nothing more.
They've ruined so much.
We can always hope and pray.
The curse of all my favorite things being owned by Disney.
It could turn out good. They could get somebody competent underneath that and actually make something nice.
That's a big what if.
We gotta ask Doctor Strange, like, do we win? Out of the 14 million chances in different timelines, is there a timeline where Disney makes something good if they do own Marvel and DC?
I feel like it's one of those things, it's like, we'll get a couple of really cool things and a lot of really shit things.
Yeah. I don't recall if it was under the Disney, but I think Rogue One was actually pretty darn good. If it was under Disney, then yeah, that's an example of they actually did something cool with the IP. As for the sequels, we don't talk about them.
Yeah, the Marvel movies and the Marvel comics do not share any lore or canon connection. Of course, as of now in that sentence is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Maybe that will change in the future when the Secret Wars movie or something comes out. But when I'm recording this, they are unconnected
I'm
entirely.
both excited and terrified for the Secret Wars. Yeah, it's going to go Doomsday Secret Wars. For like a big Avengers movies.
And that's going to be like the full multiversal thing, right? Because Secret Wars is where we started that off.
I don't know if that's what it is in the comics. It's pretty freaking crazy. So we'll see what they do in the MCU. Like, I'm excited for Doomsday, and then I remember also that they cast Robert Downey Jr. as Doom. So I'm like, I don't know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's like every time I start getting excited for that movie, that one factor brings me back down to reality. Like, oh yeah.
That was such an interesting choice because, he's so iconic as Iron Man, even though he's not playing as Iron Man anymore, but that's what we remember him as.
If they have him just purely cast as Doom, and he's just Doom, and it just happens to be the same actor, I can live with that. That's fine. If in any way, shape, or form Doom ends up being Iron Man, Tony Stark, any sort of connection, whether it's multiversal, whether it's, I don't know, then it's going to be real hard to sway me on that. I'm not a fan. We'll see. I am going to withhold judgment till it is out and I have watched it.
My only other reference for Robert Downey Jr. in a movie is Tropic Thunder. But based off of that movie, that guy has range, so you never know. He could be completely different in that role. I don't have any doubt
that he could play Doom. Like, it's just, how is it in relation to the other character that he has played in the MCU?
Yeah. That's kind of the issue, and I think a lot of actors are aware of this whenever they go into these sort of like established universes. Like, Henry Cavill is a big fan of Warhammer 40k. And if he ever starred in like a TV series or a movie related to 40k, he's sort of debating what kind of character he wants to be in that universe, because he already knows if he plays a character, he's going to be known as that character from then on, and he can't really play anything else. So you got to choose one. But this one is probably one of the first instances where we've seen like a repeat cast of such an iconic character back into an iconic series.
It's not like a bit role coming back, or like, because we've changed actors for a few roles too. But it's like Rhodes and
I was gonna say Rhodes
both change. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell.
But look, Rhodes is over here in the back on the right. Okay, Robert Downey Jr. is right here. It's kind of hard not to see him. Oh man.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe is an adaptation of the Marvel Comics. Just like Harry Potter or Percy Jackson or any other book that's made its way to screen, the two are not connected, it's just retellings of the same stories.
I never finished the Percy Jackson movies. Not gonna lie,
I have seen this debate spiral into fights before, so I'm going to give some solid canon information on it, and then we'll get back to multiverse structure very soon, I promise, but I do think this is worth talking about. Many years ago, Marvel published a singular guidebook which made an offhand reference to the MCU as Earth 199999. This book came out in 2008, long before the Marvel Cinematic Universe started doing anything multiverse related. Back then, it was canon to the Marvel Multiverse, but in a way that didn't really affect anything. The comics and the movies were totally separate, but eventually, the movies started doing multiverse things too. At this point, the movies decided that they didn't want to be tied to the comics anymore and wanted to be able to do multiverse things more freely, so they started being treated like an adaptation. It was a retcon. Yes, it was a retcon, but retcons happen in comics all the time, and honestly, this was a pretty safe one because the comics and the movies hadn't affected each other.
When you go into any of these large, massive series written by so many different people, you have to get used to retcons. They're just a part of life.
People who get mad at retcons, I think, are kind of silly, because it's like, well, I understand it. But also it's like, what would you rather them not do? Stick with something shitty or something that doesn't make sense?
I can understand it, though, when the retcon comes like out of nowhere and actively makes the thing worse.
Well, that's true. I suppose there's two different kinds of retcons. There's the ones that are done for selfish reasons that don't need to be there, and the ones that are there to fix a problem.
There was a particular retcon that did happen in the 40k universe, which I'm not going to get into. A lot of people were super bad about it. Some were kind of fine with it. Ultimately, I'm like, I'm just going to enjoy the story the way that I want to enjoy it. And even if the retcon lore is something that I don't like, I can always just uphold the old lore. It's just my own experience anyway, so I'm not going to let some company ruin that.
It really just removed one offhand Easter egg from a guidebook from 2008 and little else. But then, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness referred to the MCU main universe as number 616, and people started losing their minds about it. Here's the thing, though. The movie multiverse and the comics multiverse are, like, really obviously unconnected. Because both the comics and the movies have had multiverse-spanning events that don't affect the other one. Plus, the cosmology of them has been described in entirely different ways on multiple occasions. Try to reconcile the canon I've been giving you in this video with the canon of the Loki show. You can't do it. They are incompatible with one another because they are different.
I've seen season 1, I haven't watched season 2 yet, but it was good.
I've heard it was good. And I think like in Marvel Rivals, Loki has this one skin where he's like connecting the multiverse back together again or something like that. I guess that happens at like the end of the show. Lines. Yeah.
Proof than that, the MCU version of America Chavez has been confirmed as a singular entity within the multiverse. So she can't be in the same multiverse as the comics one because then there would be 2 of them. There's a lot of little things like this that make the lack of connection pretty.
Does that mean there's only ever one America Chavez regardless of how many multiverses there are?
That's how they've defined her in the MCU. I'm not sure if that's true in comics or not.
Okay.
Clear, but I've already gone on this tangent for way too long, so we're going to get back to the main topic. For now, though, as we move outside of the comics multiverse, just understand that the movie multiverse and the comics multiverse are unconnected as of now. Trust me on that.
Roger.
Okay, I am adding another section to this real quickly. For me right now, it is literally hours before this video goes out, but I decided that I did need to briefly address the currently running TVA comic. This comic is causing a lot of confusion right now because it really looks like it is set inside the MCU version of the TVA. Characters original to the Loki show are appearing in it, it has the MCU TVA aesthetics, which we'd never seen before, and it explicitly references MCU events. If that was the end of it, it would not be that tough. It could just be an MCU tie-in comic, not connected to the rest of the comics. But no, it is also directly connected to the main comic book multiverse, and no explanation has been provided for this, leaving fans guessing. Now, Marvel has said there will be more answers to this within the issues that have not yet released, but thank goodness, there is actually a definitive answer to its canon status right now that I can cite, so I don't have to leave this on a weird question mark. After a miscommunication about a cliffhanger at the end of issue 3 caused a ton of fan speculation, the artist of the comic went onto Instagram and officially stated MCU and Marvel Comics are not the same thing. This is something that he was communicated by editorial, so this is official word from Marvel as of 2 days ago. Now, once again, I do have to put the little as of now asterisk on there because we don't know exactly.
They showed a picture of Scarlet Witch in the TVA comic, and she looked like basically exactly like the MCU version, and everyone's like, well, does that mean this is the same Scarlet Witch?
I can see where the confusion would be then.
We're drawing it similar.
Yeah, gotcha. We did a little bit of tracing. Seeing that comment on social media actually made me think of Naoki posting like the quote-unquote official lyrics of the Guilty Gear soundtrack. At least this one. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
There's only so much you could take word of God for like what it is. But in cases like this, that's all you got, so meh.
Considering how it was worded and confirmation from other sources too, likely, I would assume, this is like from editorial, so it's the company actually saying this, and not Naoki posting the quote-unquote official lyrics by also saying, this is what I sang, but I don't know if it's official or not. But like, you sang this! What a guy.
Exactly what is going on in the TVA comic yet, and I'm not going to delay this video by a couple of months to find out. A lot of people are thinking that this is the comics just officially confirming that the comics multiverse has one universe or a small cluster of universes that resembles the MCU, but is not technically the same. Or if we want to get even weirder with it, this entire TVA could be a trick or illusion of some kind. There is some stuff in issue 3 that sort of hints to that.
Oh my god. The whole comic
I need to read the TVA comic. It looks interesting.
It's just propaganda. It's trying to gaslight you into thinking all of this is real. But it's not.
I mean, considering what it is, I wouldn't be surprised.
Status quo might change. I don't know. But again, all that I can do for purposes of these type of videos is go by the most recent canon. And right now, it has been officially stated by Marvel that the MCU and the comics are not the same thing. And it can't really get much more explicit than that, so there you go. So now we can get back to the actual topic. Hooray! The reason that I did all that was, like I said before I went on this tangent, things are about to get really weird. And they're not going to be weird in a way that is consistent with any other media. This is stuff that is unique to Marvel's cosmology, which is what makes it so fun. At this stage, we're actually going to zoom in a tiny bit before we zoom out because I skipped ahead a little bit going to overspace, mostly because I wanted to do the waiting below to eternity bit. Before you get to these outside realms of the multiverse, you enter an area called the neutral zone or exospace.
You're not wrong.
Exospace is essentially the boundary zone between the multiverse and the areas outside of it. It is described as a realm where both matter and antimatter can coexist, so as you'd expect, physics is very weird here. There's not a lot in exospace. A few mortals have been trapped here before, but talking about things that you can find naturally, there's a bunch of weird eldritch entities and a lot of this crystalline structure, which actually has a weirdly important role in Marvel video games. If you play a lot of Marvel mobile games especially, you might be familiar with the material known as ISO 8, which is a common upgrade material for characters. In the comics continuity, this is where it comes from. Moving past exospace, we are now outside of the multiverse and therefore outside of any reasonable physics. Take all your science and objective reasoning and throw them out the window. We're not going to need them for a while. There are 8 realms that we're going to cover here. Canonically, there are more, but only 8 that we've ever seen. Most of these are going to be pretty fast, though, and in fact, one of them, Overspace, we already talked about. Importantly, even though this is kind of the map of the multiverse section, I cannot give you a solid map of these areas, because space as a concept does not matter at this stage. What matters more when you're talking about extra multiversal realms is actually the purpose that you have for leaving the multiverse. This is where we get to see the idea of Marvel's cosmology being powered by narrative and story really applied in a practical sense. Whatever your storyline needs the realms outside the multiverse to be is going to determine where you end up. Sometimes, though, your story needs the area outside of the multiverse to be nothing, and so that cosmic void is what we will talk about first in this section, commonly known as the far shore. The far shore is nothingness. It's just big ol' infinite, empty cosmic space. There is nothing here naturally. Sometimes storylines happen here, but that's because people get exiled to the far shore from inside the multiverse most of the time. We're not gonna spend a lot of time on
what do you have to do in order to get exiled out of existence? What, like shoplifting?
On this one, the far shore is cool, but the explanation of how it works would just be sometimes people get stuck here. So we're gonna move on. Though the area we are moving on to is actually one that we've talked about before. It is called Beyond, and as you can probably guess, this is where the Beyonders live. What we call Beyond is actually several scattered pocket dimensions which are the remains of the second cosmos. These are the extra multiversal areas that the Beyonders use as their base of operations to observe the goings-on within the multiverse. We very rarely see the inside of Beyond, so I can't tell you too much about it.
That is a fashion
statement. One important exception, that being the realm known as the Library of Worlds. If I could go anywhere in the Marvel Multiverse, I would go here and stay here forever, probably. The Library of Worlds is a vast, potentially infinite library that contains presumably all knowledge of everything. The Beyonders created the library long ago as a sort of gift to the inhabitants of the multiverse, but would later abandon it, and now it is primarily accessed by powerful magic users and scientists, both as a source of knowledge and a meeting place. I think the library is a fascinating setting, and I really hope Marvel does more with it. As of now, it's only been seen in 2 arcs, that being 2015 Secret Wars and the lead up to it, and, say it with me, gods! I could go on an entire rant about gods again, but I will spare you all because we have other places to visit, the next one being the Well Beyond the Worlds. The Well Beyond the Worlds has only appeared in 1 comic ever, that being Resurrection of Magneto from 2024. Actually, most of the next couple realms are only from Resurrection of Magneto. I wonder what happens in that comic. It did a weird amount for the cosmic sphere. Since the Well has only appeared in this 1 book, there's not a lot of concrete information about it, but there is enough to go off of. It is described as being related to the very core of magic itself, which seems to mean that it is the origin of magic in some way or another. It also seems to function as an afterlife of sorts, but specifically for those who are also heavily connected to magic as a concept. Now, we're going to branch into headcanon territory for the next part of this, but I have a theory about the Well Beyond the Worlds that I really, really like, so I'm just going to go ahead and present that to you for your consideration. We know that pieces of previous cosmos can still exist outside the multiverse. This is what Beyond is, for example. We also know that the 5th cosmos was where magic originated, so I wonder if the Well Beyond the Worlds is a pocket reality that is the remnants of the 5th cosmos. It is literally referred to as the garden where magic grows, after all, so in my mind, it makes total sense that this is the original prime 5th cosmos source, which is now providing magic to all the cosmos going forward.
It makes sense.
But again, headcanon,
there
that
are
is
bits
not
and pieces
official
that
information
survive,
at all.
after
Also,
all.
though, come on, it would be cool, right? I'm really putting my lore historian brain to work here. From the well beyond the worlds, we can move into the sphere of judgment, which is actually a couple different metaphysical planes that I will classify together. The sphere of judgment is basically like super hell, though it is also described as a realm of
Super
purification,
hell.
and the reason I'm going to classify
On the left, you'll see Doomslayer over there having a bit of fun. God. Does Hela rule here too? Or is Hela just the ruler of regular hell?
Hela rules hell, like, I think with one L.
Whoa! Oh my god, is there a distinction between the two?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Oh, you gotta spell it right, or else people are gonna get confused.
with a few others is that this really gets into the concept of afterlives, like capital A afterlives. I'm not going to go too deep into this because it would kind of move from cosmology of Marvel into religion of Marvel, a topic that I will probably never cover in detail because it would be too controversial. But to summarize really quickly, pretty much all religions in the Marvel universe are true to some extent because Marvel has never settled on one, which makes a lot of sense. But this also means that fictional quote-unquote religions can also be true, and that's what these areas deal with. The mutants have one of these, especially important during the Krakoa era. It revolves around...
Oh god, here we go again. We're gonna have to learn about Krakoa at some point. Everybody talks about it. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I can find some good videos going on Krakoa.
This is a bit of an interesting topic, and as you said, yeah, like it's way too controversial of a thing to talk about in a YouTube video. But as a Buddhist myself, there is this thing where we also believe that we should respect everybody else's religion too, because there is no one way to enlightenment. It is their own way that they seek to find enlightenment. And you can reach that state regardless of whatever religion that you believe in. So, pretty similar concept here, I guess. But this is just sort of made manifest into the Marvel Universe reality. That everything can coalesce and bring you here, I guess, to super hell.
Can't we all just get along?
Honestly, right? Oh, man. That's exactly where you want to go when you die, for sure. The name sounds freaking rad.
These extra multiversal afterlife spaces, and this is what the Resurrection of Magneto series is all about. Magneto dies, he ends up here, and then Storm goes and gets him. These afterlife realms are for the most part self-contained to that Krakoan religion though, with one exception, that being the White Hot Room. This one is very important. The White Hot Room is the home of the Phoenix Force. Remember, the Phoenix Force is a singular entity across the multiverse, so it does make sense that it would be based outside of the multiverse. It is a realm of pure light and life, and therefore it is very, very trippy. Originally, it also functioned as an afterlife, but specifically to those people who were hosts of the Phoenix Force at one point in their lives. In the current canon, it is way more than that though, because it's also, to my knowledge, where Krakoa is now. I'm going to explain this very quickly, but I'm going to
What happened to Krakoa? How did it end up here?
Preface this by saying there's no way this is going to make sense in total context because of how complex Krakoa was, so I'm just going to say some things and you have to take that they are true.
Oh god.
At the end of the Krakoa era, like literally the final issues of it, the White Hot Room becomes an eminently important thing, and the Phoenix Force connects to every mutant ever, and this leads to Krakoa itself ascending to the White Hot Room, like leaving Earth and becoming a specific mutant afterlife. Which I know is an absolutely wild thing to just drop in the middle of a largely unrelated video, but yeah, that's what happened to Krakoa.
So how do you... I guess if you die and you have the X gene, you get sent to this particular heaven? Who sorts you out? Like, is somebody keeping tabs on you and just sending you to the right place?
You have different conditions to get put into different places. Do you just get to pick which one you want to go to?
Select your respawn point.
Left the multiverse and is just chilling out there now. It still exists, but not in the same way at all. Back to the White Hot Room at large, there is an opposite of it called the Dark Cold Room.
Of course there is.
I mean, That is what I guess you would call the opposite of it. Predictably, the dark cold room is where the opposite of the Phoenix Force lives. The problem with that is that there are many things which have been described as the opposite of the Phoenix Force over the years, and the dark cold room solves that problem by just putting them all in here and saying, yeah, I guess they're different manifestations and aspects of the same force.
This is... Wow. We're really just putting all of these things into categories and just like making sure...
Putting them into literal boxes.
Yeah, exactly. Storing them away over here so that we know what this is. So we can make it easier to explain to the reader. Yeah. I mean, it's a cool concept in universe and also just a convenient way to explain things for the reader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's that, and now we don't have to deal with it anymore. So yeah, answering a sidebar question, if you're curious what the opposite of the Phoenix Force is, it is all of these things at once, which are different but also the same. Does that make sense? No?
Yep.
Well, whatever, I don't care. This is the answer you have. Moving on past these afterlife-type realms, we get to the final two realms in our multiversal journey, one of which we have also briefly talked about, that being the land of couldn't be, shouldn't be. If you recall Act -2 of this video, this is the home of the Queen of Nevers, the cosmic embodiment of possibility. As such, it's hard to describe on purpose. It is typically referred to as an empty void, but like not in the exact same way that the far shore is. It's not empty because it's just infinite space. It's empty because it is raw possibility that has not been realized. It could be anything, but it's not yet, so currently it's nothing. That felt really weird to say, but as philosophical and trippy as it sounds, it is the best description that I can think of.
I guess just the easiest way to think of this place is it's a blank piece of paper. It is the artist's studio where creation begins. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know what else to say about the land of couldn't be, shouldn't be, because it by definition defies solid description. It could be anything, but it's also not anything, but therefore anything that I tell you it could possibly be is also accurate to what it is or what it at least could be at some point in the possible future. This is some Alice in Wonderland nonsense, and I really like it, but I gotta move on before I break my brain and yours. Moving on from that, well, how do we move on from that? How do we go higher on a cosmological scale past a realm of infinite nothingness that could be a realm of infinite anything? Where else is there to go? Well, there is an answer to that, and it's an answer that everything in this video has been building to. Welcome to the extra secret bonus act of this. We've done Act 1, 2, -2, and 3. Where else to go but Act Infinity, the House of Ideas?
Well, the very beginning of any good comic, you have an idea. This is literally like within the brain of the artist.
Quite literally, yes.
I was gonna make a joke and it would be like just straight up the address to like Marvel, like their main company. But yeah, this makes a lot more sense.
Why do I separate this into its own act? Well, I think you'll see as we go that that's the only way to do it. Before we talk about what the House of Ideas is, we have to talk about one more entity. An entity that I've mentioned a few times in this video, but always just said we've talked about later. Later has finally arrived. Let's talk about the one above all.
Hey!
The one above...
Oh, is this where he lives?
Yep.
It's a quirky little house. I actually kind of like it. Bro's got style.
Of all is the pinnacle of the Marvel Multiverse. You cannot go higher in scale than this entity. And
and this guy I've actually heard of before, but it was in the context of one of Spider-Man's stories where Peter Parker hit like his lowest low of all time. And so the one above all was like, here, bro, take a look at this. This is all the people that you saved. You feel better now? All right, get back to being Spider-Man. That was basically the gist of what I learned about that.
The reason that you can't go higher above this thing is that it isn't even technically part of the Marvel Multiverse, at least not entirely. The one above all is the creative energy that makes the Marvel Multiverse work. It is us in the real world as the creators and perceivers of this work. The one above all is the amalgamation of everyone in our world that makes Marvel Marvel. It is the writers, it is the artists, it is the editors, it is the lore keepers, it is the readers and fans. You watching this video right now, you are technically a tiny piece of the one above all, in a literal sense. We are
unlimited power! I can make Spider-Man suffer even more!
Oh no. Oh, poor Pete.
Oh man. But this is really cool. It's such a neat concept. Ever since the beginning when we learned about how they thought of this all from the very start. And just having it so that we also can participate within the universe. Yeah, I don't think I've seen anything quite like this before.
Yeah, I really like it. It's a good way to tie in just the entire creative process integral into your work and have it be like, that is the top, like when you say word of God, right? When the creators say random shit, it's like, but that's literally it. It's the one above all.
Exactly.
Into metafiction territory now, and we're going to go even deeper when I show you more pictures of this thing. The one above all is most commonly represented as a being of golden light, but it has taken human form before, and typically when it takes human form, it looks like Jack Kirby. Where do we see cosmic metafiction?
Who's Jack Kirby? One of the creators of Marvel?
Yeah, usually you'll see Stan Lee and Jack Kirby as like the names of Marvel. And they're created a lot of these.
Gotcha. So this is how the Marvel lore ties into the Kirby universe. Gotcha.
God take human form? Well, that is within the realm known as the House of Ideas. The House of Ideas kind of just looks like a normal house a lot of the time, and it's where the writing gets done. This place is very rarely seen, but my favorite example of this is when the Fantastic Four managed to explore all the way to the House of Ideas, and when they went inside, there was the one above all, sitting at his desk, drawing a comic book. To say that the one above all is all-powerful is understating it, not because it's just that strong, but because power doesn't even really apply in this sense.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, if there was a being that you would call God, it is the one above all. Because they are the one who decides every single bit of detail that happens within this universe, so
that's
I can
why
imagine.
It always cracks me up with power scaling conversations. Everyone just goes, well, if we sidebar one above all, then it's this whatever conversation they start going into. But it's like the ultimate answer is you got to remove one above all because there just is no other answer to that.
Nothing would exist without one above all, so yeah.
I occasionally see people trying to power scale the one above all. Let me give you a thought experiment here. Imagine a character in your head. Any character. Can be one you make up, can be somebody else's character, anything. Now bonk them on the head in your mind with a little hammer. You see how that character can't stop you from imagining that if you really want to? That's what we're talking about with the one above all here. It's not something that you can scale with fictional characters because it's not fictional. It's a writer. The one above all is the direct hand of the creators interfering in their own creation. In the strictest sense of the word, it's not even really a character because it is not subject to the whims of the story like all the others are. But occasionally it is. There are exceptions to this, so let's talk about those. To do this, we need to understand the entity known as the One Below All, most explored in the fantastic series Immortal Hulk. The One Below All is originally presented as a dark mirror to the One Above All. If the One Above All is goodness and creation, then the One Below All is evil and destruction. But it's
Oh, so you mean just your average commenter under a YouTube video. Gotcha. It's like, oh, you get to decide how the story goes. And then you got those people who are like, no, I hate everything about this. I wish it never existed. There you go.
Yeah.
actually not that simple. As this series goes on, it is revealed that the One Below All is not an opposite parallel entity to the One Above All. It is actually the same being representing itself in a different way, which has fascinating psychological and philosophical implications. See, the One Above All is typically represented as good. It is a creator force. It is what caused everything in the Marvel Universe. But thinking about it, a lot of bad stuff happens in the Marvel Universe too. Let's take a classic, the death of Uncle Ben. The One Above All created that too. So is it really good? This is the purpose of the one below all. It is not its own being, it is the dark side of the creator. It is the acknowledgement that to make a story happen, bad things often need to be done to the characters within it.
Yeah. Oh, this is so cool, though. Like, for humans, we have a good side, we have a bad side. There isn't anybody who is inherently just benevolent at all times.
Yeah.
But yeah, to make an interesting story, you have to make your character suffer. Therefore, to those characters, you would be seen as the most evil being within existence. So yeah, this makes way too much sense. But even then, you also make those characters overcome those issues that you posted to them. So then you're just the benevolent one.
All the good things in their life are also your creation.
Yeah. We're all just pawns in this massive game that this one above all is playing in order to sell as many comic books as possible, I guess. It's kind of the game. So
this is not strictly good, but for the purposes of storytelling and narrative, it is a necessity. And this dark necessity is what the one below all represents.
Things have to go wrong.
Of course, in stories like this, good typically wins, and therefore the one below all is, in a sense, lesser than the one above all. It is a being that ultimately exists to be defeated. It is weaker than creation because creation is always going to win out against destruction. If destruction wins in the end, there's no more stories to be told, and that's not going to happen.
Ooh, I hope it never happens to Marvel. I have a tale to tell you about Warhammer Fantasy. So everybody, whenever we talk about Warhammer, they usually refer to Warhammer 40k. That's the currently most popular thing. But Warhammer Fantasy was the thing they were working on. Originally, it was set in a fantasy universe. Surprise, surprise. And it had all these really cool ideas and all these awesome factions and characters and things. But they were also like, oh, let's introduce some stupid rules into the tabletop. And oh no, the tabletop isn't selling well anymore. Guess we gotta nuke the series and start anew. So then they wrote something called The End Times, where the chaos forces within the lore destroyed the world. And then there was no more Warhammer Fantasy.
Damn.
And they did... something just connected and disconnected on my PC. What the heck? Anyways. And they did this like a month or two before Total War Warhammer, the first Total War Warhammer game, got released, and everybody loved Warhammer Fantasy. But the company had gotten rid of that IP. Biggest brain move ever. I don't know what they were thinking. You have this chaos, you have this destructive force, your universe is grimdark, yes, but if you let them win, then there's nothing that you can do with that IP anymore, even if it gets revived.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
Don't you hate when business takes place of creation?
All the Warhammer fans watching this video will have the exact same reaction as I just did.
Yeah, I believe it.
Business has always taken over creation when it comes to this IP, and I wish it didn't, because there are so many cool ideas whenever people get to be creative with it. But man, oh, your sales aren't enough. Let's nuke it, bro. What the?
Yeah, there's a lot of, even just in general, awesome things that get shut down because business needed a scapegoat or didn't quite meet the sales projections that they wanted it to when it first launches or something. I don't know.
Like, at least
it's always a tragedy.
With the Marvel lore, you will always have wiggle room to get around situations like that. You can always say that you were able to revive this situation because so-and-so character made this device to bring back this multiverse or whatever. But we don't have anything like that for Warhammer, so the best thing they could do was reboot Warhammer Fantasy by calling it something different and then selling new models so that you could buy them again. Awesome!
Oh dear.
I love that! So that was my rant. I'm so glad that Marvel isn't going down that path, and I hope they never have to.
Unfortunate for sure.
Now, even though the one above all and the one below all combined represent the sum total of all creation, there are exceptions to that as well, and cases in which things can arise without their influence. We've really only seen this happen once, but it's a very interesting case.
Oh.
This would be the Mother of Horrors, a new character to the Marvel canon who we have not yet literally seen, only heard mention of, and seen the children of.
That's
The
so
Mother of
cool.
Horrors is stated to have come into existence without the one above all's influence. It made itself exist in some way, and this made the one above all very angry. This is not to say that the Mother of Horrors is more powerful than the one above all. In fact, the one below all was able to chain it fairly easily. What I see the Mother of Horrors representing is more like the unintended consequences or interpretations of creation. The arc that we've seen the Mother of Horrors go through in her very brief existence was that she manifested, the one above all was aware of this and became very angry, it appeared as the one below all and chained it but did not destroy it. Much like a piece of creative work can be interpreted in ways that the creator does not like. They can try their best.
Ah, yes. The death of the author. When things are taken into the hands of people who want to interpret it in their own ways and or misinterpret certain things that you didn't intend.
Literature professors.
No. Why is this so true? Like, you want to learn about literature, you want to learn about critical thinking, but if you write the essay and it's not in the way that the literature teacher thought, then you're wrong.
I had one in community college that went on a long, spiel about how Twilight was so much deeper than people gave it credit for. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think you're stretching.
I feel as if these people also need to realize that art is an interpretation, a self-interpretation, and it can mean really anything to anybody. It doesn't have to mean the same thing to everyone. That's kind of the point.
I think there's just a category of literature enjoyers who just really want everything to be deep and profound and will find that even if it doesn't exist. Which there's nothing wrong with that. But it's definitely not necessarily all authors' intentions to be deep and profound.
Yeah, for sure. I just think we have to accept as a community that sometimes certain decisions are made because it was freaking cool. And I liked it. You know?
Yeah. Well, that's things like solo leveling, right? There's nothing deep or complex about that story in any aspect, but it's a lot of fun, and you go through it because it is just fun to experience Jinwoo being cool. And it doesn't need to be anything more than that.
Exactly. It served its purpose. You enjoyed it for what it was, and then we move on to the next. That's the beautiful thing about media.
To suppress that, but ultimately that's not going to be something that they have full control over because people can form their own opinions. So you can try to chain the Mother of Horrors, but you cannot get rid of it completely. Now, let's address some of the contrarians in the room with regards to the one above all. I know what the comic book audience looks like, and I'm about to read some of you hard. Let's return to that thought experiment from a couple minutes ago where I told you to imagine a character and then bonk them on the head with a little imaginary hammer. I am absolutely certain that some of you didn't do exactly that. A few of you imagined the character dodging or catching the hammer or something else which prevented them from being hit by your strike. Now, you might think that I'm going to yell at you and say you got it wrong, but no, you actually understand this a lot more. The one above all is an ultimate creator, yes, but ask any writer or artist and they will tell you that the things that they create can surprise them sometimes. Creation can become bigger than its creator, and that is often what the one above all is all about. The one above all is not some singular creator deity imposing its divine will on everything that it makes. It is a creator who is curious, who is fascinated by the things that it can make. It is intrigued by the mystery. Is the one above all the ultimate undeniable peak of power within the Marvel Universe? Yes.
I would say yes.
No matter what storylines happen within the comics, it is the writers and the artists and the fans, like I said. And until Doctor Doom rolls up to our universe and holds the entire Marvel editorial department hostage, nothing's going to change that.
Bro, I can totally see that actually happening. I've escaped the comic books, for I am Doom. What a guy.
if anyone were to do it, it would be Doom.
Like we see Deadpool do it all the time, but he doesn't really do it. If Doom actually did it, he would literally do it.
But if you stop there, then you're asking these questions for the wrong reasons. The One Above All does not exist to define things or control things. It exists to explore things, to be curious, to ask in true Marvel fashion the question, what if? That simple little question is the key to everything in this nearly 2-hour video. Every piece of Marvel exists because a part of The One Above All asked, what if? The multiverse exists because somebody asked, what if things played out differently? Eternity exists because somebody asked, what if the multiverse was a dude? Overspace exists because somebody asked, what if a guy got big enough to talk to that dude? And so on and so forth. Everything comes down to those two simple words. Some of these answers that I've presented to you over the course of this video are going to change. Hell, a couple of them changed while I was in the middle of recording. But that's the beauty of all this, and that is one of the best things about Western comic books as a genre. They keep going, and people keep asking what if, and every time somebody does that, things change and grow and evolve, and there's always new stories to be told. Over this video, I have talked about so many things. The history of the multiverse, the entities, the structure of it from the microverse on up. It just got weirder and weirder and weirder. And the end point of all that weirdness was us. It was you, it was me, it was the writers, it was
we
us
are pretty
as
weird,
people.
yeah.
We created that weirdness. And I think that's kind of beautiful. No matter how awful the world around us might be, and believe me, it gets awful at times, humanity has always, throughout our entire history back to the Mesopotamians, been able to imagine weirdness. And as we create these things, this creation becomes a part of us.
Oh, wow. This is probably one of the most, unique, inspirational, quote-unquote, speeches. Yeah. No matter how bad it gets, you can still be weird. Thanks.
It's so real for that.
Yeah.
The Marvel Universe is built on this fundamentally. Narrative is woven into the literal fabric of reality, and I would argue that in a way, that's true in the real world too. Storytelling is one of the most important things that humanity has, and it's never going to stop in spite of everything. Storytelling moves ever onwards, ever upwards. In the words of the great Stan Lee, Excelsior.
Gosh.
Thank you all so much for watching. Seriously, I mean that more than ever. This is the first time I've done a video that was genuinely movie length. And believe me, if you think I covered a lot, there is 3 times more that I didn't cover. So if you're interested in hearing more of that, I mean, first subscribe to me because I'm going to keep talking about it. But also,
please
go pick
subscribe.
up a comic book and read some of this for yourself.
Do it.
That, above all else, is the thing that I encourage you to do. Big special shout out to Ruben Perez, the artist who drew the avatar that you've been watching talk at you for the last 2 hours. Go check him out. He always does a fantastic job, and I love working with him. And if you want to see more of Ruben's work and my work, as well as what happens when I write superhero stories of my own, check out my TTRPG show, The D and Dorks, especially the season titled Power Play. This series and a few others that I've done are part of my own superhero universe, which is titled Anti-Cosmic. I am actively working on more projects in this world, so this is very early stages. I can't promise a solid date yet, but there should be a few comic books in this setting coming out later this year. As for me, I just spent the last many hours of my life talking about cosmology for a very, very long time, so I'm gonna take a break. Though my break is probably going to be reading a bunch of comic books, so the vibe is not really going to change that much. I will see you next time.
You love to see it, though, when somebody loves something so much that they start to create things within that genre. I mean, you could say it's a similar thing with us, too. But, yeah, that's just that human weirdness. And asking, what if I did that, What could I do with that? It just ties in so beautifully together. It's a perfect circle, just how you like it, Serby. There.
It epitomizes everything that I love. Just surreal, abstract storytelling at its finest.
I never knew that we went so deep with the lore here. It goes on, and when you thought that you reached the end, it goes even further beyond.
Obviously, most comics don't ever get into most of this stuff. But the ones that do, it's always fun. And even when they don't, it's like that it's in the background, so it's like
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Like now, whenever I read any sort of comic book story, I feel like I see backstage what's happening and why it's happening and what is going through like the one above all's mind during these moments. You understand the intent of the writer, so you can understand what the characters are going through, the story more, what the intention was, and what the message is. That's just, I don't think I've ever experienced any other sort of media that gave you that peek into the backstage as much as, well, watching this lore video has on the Marvel universe as a whole.
I feel like the closest that I can see other things have done would be SCP. It's not the same, but it's the closest that I can come with.
Yeah.
Like the 01 proposals and different things get super meta, but...
Oh, if you're talking about those, then yeah. They also play into the meta, and like the author or like the people reading the SCP document themselves are the ones creating the universe and stuff like that. But it's sort of that creative freedom that also spawns from the same question of what if I brought this concept into SCP and tried to tie it to everything else into the lore. It's just a great creative process that you could really use this as a basis for anything that you work on, truly.
Well, I just love something as big and grand as Marvel Comics, right? To have at its core, literally at its core, it's just pure storytelling. And that just makes me happy.
Storytelling is such a valuable skill, regardless of the age that you live in. Like, you can make bank just being really good at storytelling. Heck, being a YouTuber is being a storyteller. If you're not a good storyteller, then people aren't going to listen to you. So nobody's going to watch. So that's just how it is. Communication, art. It's all so intertwined together. It's so beautiful, man.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of some of the shit that we've seen through like the MCU and maybe some comics that weren't so great, ultimately, it came from this basis, which is unlimited potential.
You take the goods with the bads. And there's been a lot of goods, even if there's been some bads.
But yeah, thank you very much for introducing me to all of this, Servi. My brain is a little bit fried, but I appreciate the experience nonetheless. Do you have any particular plans as to what we might cover next when it comes to Marvel?
I've got a few options. So my thinking is, I know you're a big Psylocke fan, so the same person has a video talking about Psylocke, which I think is a good video. I've also found some that kind of go over kind of like Marvel groups in broad strokes, and then there's some that go into more X-Men stuff in broad strokes. It kind of just depends on where you want to go next. I can find some good things, and I'm sure people in comments can leave some good videos too that I can check out and see where we want to take it.
Alrighty. Yeah, I do personally have my interest with certain characters from Marvel Rivals, that's for sure. But we'll talk about it later then. And definitely leave your recommendations in the comments, my dudes. But that's going to be it from us today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Bye-bye.